meditative concentration. One should understand the principle of practicing both samatha and vipassana together, using this to destroy all afflictions. Truly transcending the four formless absorptions, practicing meditative concentration is the conduct of a bodhisattva. Understand that, with regard to virtuous objects of focus, the mind abides single-pointedly in the state of calm abiding, and realizes superior insight into emptiness. One is samatha, the other is vipassana. By samatha and vipassana, one eradicates the root ignorance and all afflictions of cyclic existence, the union of samatha and vipassana. This is a remedy that possesses both meditative concentration and wisdom. It can sever the ignorance and other afflictions within our mental continuum. We should truly transcend the meditative absorptions of the four formless realms, which are primarily based on samatha. As we have studied in The Wish-Fulfilling Treasury, we should cultivate vipassana that extinguishes the extreme of existence. One is the meditative concentration of samatha and the other is vipassana, along with the great compassion that extinguishes the extreme of cessation and the meditative concentrations that are excellent supportive companions. One is the wisdom of vipassana and the other is great compassion that extinguishes the extreme of cessation. If one possesses great compassion, one will not, like Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, come to the state of cessation. Such meditative concentration is samatha and cultivation of three meditative absorptions. This is the conduct of all bodhisattvas who practice path of meditative absorption. According to the ornament of the sutras, the mind abides inwardly in peace. Also, in entering the middle way, it is said, meditative absorption gathers the mind. In fact, the defining feature of meditative absorption is its ability to gather and hold the mind. The mind should not be directed outward, not always looking at your phone, playing with your phone, letting your mind scatter outward, but rather gather it inward so the mind abides within. That's why, for us now, meditation practice is truly very important. If we don't have at least a little bit of actual practice and only talk about it verbally, it really won't work. This includes some Khenpos, Lamas, and Khenmos. If from a very young age one places significantly more emphasis on spiritual practice and its profound benefits, then this is truly, truly meaningful and deeply significant. If someone has never encountered these things and only studies and talks about theory without having truly good spiritual teachers, then their practice will be very poor. So everyone, each of us, should still learn and practice a bit. Actually, in Chinese Buddhism, there are quite a lot who study meditation. And many Chan masters are also very experienced and have attained states of realization through practice. So in this case, we must practice meditation, not letting the mind scatter beyond its object, but abiding with a wholesome mind on a single focus. This is the very essence of meditation. The essence of meditation is like this. Entering meditative absorption, body and mind feel light, peaceful tranquility. This is called the meditative absorption bliss of the present moment. When we practice, sometimes we feel especially comfortable, very light and at ease. When entering meditative absorption, one never wants to leave state. This is called meditative absorption of dwelling in bliss of present moment. There is also the attainment of supernatural powers and the accomplishment of the 8 liberations and so on. This meditative absorption possesses these common merits. This is called the meditative absorption that accomplishes merit. This is what generally happens during practice, where one relies on meditation to achieve these merits. Furthermore, by relying on the power of concentration, one can accomplish the blameless and proper benefit of sentient beings, and through our practice bring benefit to sentient beings. To liberate and benefit sentient beings in a proper and genuine way, this is the meditative absorption that benefits sentient beings. These 3 types of meditative absorption are categorized from the perspective of their function. Of course, there are many other classifications as well. For example, in the ornament of the sutras and the way of the Bodhisattva, there are still many different classifications of meditative absorption, but the way it is presented here is somewhat different from some other Mahayana treatises. What are the faults of not practicing meditative absorption? In the way of the Bodhisattva, it is said that a distracted mind is caught in the jaws of delusion. In other words, if the mind is scattered, if it is constantly wandering outward all day long, then what situation are we already in? We are caught between the teeth of afflictive emotions in the jaws of delusion. The moment these afflictions bite down, they can immediately take your life away. This means to say, if we do not meditate regularly, it is very dangerous. It is inside the mouth of afflictive emotions very dangerous It's like the wheel of reincarnation. Everyone knows that King Yama, the entire 6 realms of reincarnation, are all contained within his mouth. What does this mean? It means that all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara are impermanent. So what is the nature of the 6 realms of samsara? They are driven by the 12 links of dependent origination. And what is at the center? At the center are the manifestations of greed, anger, and ignorance. Similarly, if our minds are scattered, then we are inside the mouth of afflictive emotions. There is no way to attain liberation. So this time, on one hand, as we listen and contemplate, I also sincerely hope that everyone can truly put away their mobile phones and the internet, except for those specific times when you need to do some volunteer work. Tomorrow is Monday, so in that case, starting from midnight tonight, it should count as a kind of collective effort for everyone to both listen, contemplate, and meditate at the same time. Because when it comes to meditative concentration, just talking about it is really different from actually doing it. There is indeed a difference between speaking and doing. Some people only talk, they are just lecturers. Even myself, as I said yesterday, I feel very ashamed. I truly think this way. The things I talk about, whether it's the exoteric or esoteric teachings, or even the 5 great treatises, I can talk a little about all of them. When I was young, regarding the 5 great treatises, exoteric and esoteric teachings, sometimes I think, fortunately, in front of my precious guru, I listen to all these teachings. So later, when introducing them to you, basically I don't mislead anyone with these. You could say that I basically give everyone some guidance. But on the other hand, I think if my teacher had made me do retreat every day back then, maybe I would have some realization now. If I had realization, what I could bring to you all might be even better. But the truth is, I don't have realization now. Without realization, maybe it's already too late to start now, but there's nothing I can do about it. In any case, for myself, basically, whether it's the impermanence of life or the suffering of samsara, I've also practiced these a little bit, but my level of realization isn't high. Because my realization isn't high, I'm often dissatisfied with my own actions. So I think it's the same for you all. If you don't start looking inward regularly from now on, we can all talk about it, but our afflictions won't decrease. If our afflictions don't decrease, then in reality monastics and others are only different in that they have no hair and wear different clothes. So there's really no other difference. And it's the same for lay practitioners. Lay practitioners are no different from others either. At most, they just have a certificate of refuge. So we still need to sincerely reflect from our hearts and think about whether there are any ways to counteract our afflictions. We should also reflect on this ourselves. If we let our wild elephant-like mind run loose, we will suffer the torments of the unceasing hell. No harm is greater than not taming this wild elephant. The way of the Bodhisattva also says that our mind is like a wild elephant. If you don't tame it, you will definitely fall into the unceasing hell. But as for the wild elephant, it can only trample and destroy our life once. But the wild elephant of the mind causes us to be reborn in hell, life after life, never to attain liberation. The letter to a friend states, without meditative concentration, there is no wisdom. This means if one lacks meditative concentration, it's impossible to gain the vipassana that realizes selflessness. If there is no vipassana, then none of the 3 types of enlightenment can be attained, whether it is the enlightenment of a Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, or a Buddha, all require the wisdom of selflessness. This wisdom of selflessness can only arise when the mind is calm. If our mind is not calm at all, then how could there be the wisdom of selflessness? It's impossible. So what are the merits of practicing meditative concentration? Shantideva says in the Compendium of Training, only by entering meditative absorption can one understand the Buddha taught. If we ourselves truly enter meditative absorption, only then do we realize, oh, so this is what the Buddha meant, impermanence. If we contemplate this often, we come to realize, oh, life is impermanent. If we enter meditative absorption, reflect on the rarity of human life. Human life is rare. The merits of the 3 jewels and the law of karma, when we genuinely practice meditative absorption on these, then we not only know how to talk about them verbally, but we also truly understand their meaning in our hearts. As it is also stated in the way of the Bodhisattva, there is the supreme insight of samatha, the supreme insight from tranquility. It can eliminate all afflictions. Thus, one should first seek samatha. When we possess both insight and samatha in union, only then can we eliminate afflictions. Knowing this, I first seek tranquility, first allowing the mind to settle down. Turn off the computer, turn off the phone, Otherwise, how could you possibly truly do it? If you keep on going like this, it's really quite frightening and concerning nowadays. For example, there are all these numerous short videos readily available on your mobile phone, like Douyin, for instance. I don't have any of those myself, but when I see others using Douyin, Kuaishu, and so on, just watching a few short clips, and several hours have already passed. For someone who seeks liberation, this is a waste of one's life. Is it really necessary? Everyone can reflect on this themselves. The mind should rely on meditative absorption and gain vipassana that directly realizes reality's true nature. This eliminates afflictions like greed, anger, and ignorance. Here the sequence of calm abiding and insight being explained, as well as their merits. As mentioned in the previous verses, transcending the four formless absorptions, the ornament of the sutras states, meditative concentration isn't formless states or their four absorptions, such as infinite consciousness, infinite space, or neither perception nor non-perception. It is not any of these. The root of all the merits accomplished by bodhisattvas is meditative absorption included in cultivation of concentration. For those present as well, if you truly want to achieve some real progress in your practice, of course, reciting prayers is fine. Prostrations are also fine. Circumambulating mandalas or stupas is also fine. But what is the most fundamental thing? The most fundamental and essential thing is to calm your mind, truly calm your thoughts, to recognize your own mind, or to let your mind settle and rest. This is the most crucial point. So, as I mentioned earlier, some of our new lay practitioners get very excited everywhere they go. Actually, I hope that future Buddhists among us won't be like some people in the arts and entertainment world who come in holding katas, extremely excited, shouting, warm welcome, warm welcome. Back when we were in school, there were situations like this. I don't want to see that happen. Everyone should behave like a proper person with right understanding and mindfulness. For example, when encountering a guru, people bring katas and money, blocking the way everywhere. But actually, this isn't very important either. The most important thing is for each person to listen, contemplate, and practice on their own. This is truly and genuinely very important. If we absolutely do not do this, it really is extremely and exceptionally difficult to manage. If you don't practice yourself, then no matter how much blessing the Guru generously gives, I have even seen a few Tibetans who are truly devoted. When they see a Guru, they feel their head must touch his feet. This kind of behavior is actually very foolish. This is not something that Buddhism praises. What Buddhism praises is truly recognizing your own mind through practice. So what is a guru? A guru relies on such principles and uses his own experience to offer guidance to everyone. After receiving this guidance, you come to recognize your own mind's nature, understand how to abide, and learn how to eliminate afflictions. This is the role of the guru. It's not that you must make an offering in order to truly accomplish all merit. That's not the case either. So as Buddhists, indeed, on one hand, doing good deeds and accumulating virtue is very good, and it's also a way to show enthusiasm toward the Guru and the Dharma teacher. But on the other hand, in the later teachings of Venerable Longchenpa, about relying on a spiritual friend and relying on the nature of mind, these points are explained very clearly. Those who are extremely enthusiastic at the very beginning, in the end may also become people who slander in various ways. They only believe in Buddhism, but do not study Buddhism. Not studying, not practicing. There is a bit of a difference here. Nowadays, some people give up very easily. For example, when their business is good and everything is going well, they say, oh, this is the blessing of the Buddha and the three jewels, it's wonderful. But when something happens in their family or their finances are bad, when the whole environment is unfavorable, they say, the Buddha doesn't really bless me, the three jewels don't really bless me. Then they immediately attribute it to this. But in fact, it's because they haven't studied or practiced. They only believe. If you only have faith, Venerable Longchenpa, in the chapter on the nature of faith that we read today, talks about several kinds of faith, 6 types in fact. So we truly and sincerely hope that all Buddhists, including each and every one of you individuals, wherever you may be situated and located, whenever you meet any teacher, you should remain a bit more calm. For those who are just starting to learn Buddhism, especially among the female group, it's really a bit, I don't know what kind of thing this is. Is this some kind of illness, or is it, honestly, I don't see it as genuine faith. Some people go really overboard whenever they see a teacher, but actually these people are the ones who easily fall away. In the end, they're also the ones who are quick to slander, because deep down, they don't have true faith in the truth. If you have faith in the truth, you won't be so impulsive. Impulsiveness makes it very easy to lose your faith. So we rely on a kind of samatha and depend on a kind of wisdom to cut off the afflictions within our own mental continuum. This is very important. This is important at all times. The foundation of all bodhisattva practices is, on the one hand, held by general meditative absorption. And for these bodhisattvas, especially those whose abiding and clarity are equal, it should be the meditative concentration of the fourth dhyana. Maybe we should add the word fourth here, the fourth dhyana. Generally, when it comes to the fourth dhyana, the abiding and clarity aspects are equal. Therefore, this is also the cause of all virtues and the most supreme method of meditative concentration. In addition, Venerable Atisha also said, a scattered mind wastes one's life. Therefore, one should enter meditative absorption right now. He also said that the mind of supreme meditative absorption is unchanging. Venerable Gunbawa also said, the foundation of meditative concentration is relying on a quiet place. Indeed, at the very beginning, especially for beginners who want to practice meditation, it is still necessary to be in a relatively quiet place. Otherwise, it is very difficult to practice meditation. If there are many people around, even just a few people, it really is a bit difficult to meditate in such circumstances. Geshe Patoa also said, if you love crowds and are entangled in trivial matters, you cannot do good deeds. Especially those who love crowded places and are particularly fond of having lots of trivial matters. People are sometimes just born different from each other. Some people are extremely scattered and distracted. In such cases, on the one hand, virtuous practices cannot succeed. And if virtuous practices cannot succeed, there is no way to meditate. Also, Geshe Patoa said, a meditator must be content and have few desires regarding all external things, must know contentment and reduce desires. Because when it comes to meditation, if you have too many cravings for external things, your meditation cannot succeed. Whether it's about people or material possessions, or anything external at all. If you can reduce some of your greed and have a sense of contentment, then your meditation may succeed. Many meditation masters in the past, and even those today, the teachers and practitioners who are good at practice, they are all content and have few desires. They don't have many cravings, and their lives are simple and uncomplicated. Unlike us worldly people, who are especially extravagant and have very high demands, and are also particularly picky, whether it's about food or accommodation, in every aspect it's always, this won't do or that won't do. With this kind of attitude, it's simply impossible for the mind to settle in meditation. You might not even be able to enter a meditative state for half an hour. Truly, among us, some people are especially burdened by afflictions, especially those with a lot of negative, discriminating thoughts. For people like that, even a brief half hour or an hour, in fact half an hour or an hour, isn't really enough to accomplish anything. To truly enter meditation, you need at least 6 hours a day. Only then can it be considered as having a bit of real practice. If you sit for 3 sessions, each lasting 2 hours, then it might be a bit better. If you haven't been doing this for a long time, and you only sit for 5 minutes or 2 minutes at a time, that's also fine. You can just sit for a bit like that. Sometimes if you really don't have time, even half an hour or 15 minutes, just meditating a little on your own can also bring some relaxation. But if you really want to counteract afflictions, to change the continuity of your own mind, then the habits we've accumulated since beginningless time, which are like a river, especially those turbulent afflictions, can't possibly be overcome in just a few seconds or a few minutes. It's definitely impossible to counteract them in such a short time. For those who lack pure vows and whose mental continuum is not pure, even if they practice meditation, they will not succeed. You see, those who have broken their vows, whose discipline is impure, their minds are constantly generating all kinds of discriminating thoughts every day, harboring wrong views toward their teacher, wrong views toward their Dharma friends, and even developing aversion toward the entire environment. Such people, if their minds themselves are not pure, it's like having a vessel. If the inside is very dirty, then whatever is brewed inside won't be particularly delicious. It's the same principle. So if a person's mental continuum is not pure, if their vows are not pure, if their discipline is not pure, even if they go into retreat and enter meditative absorption, they will not succeed. Kharwa Geshe also said, for beginners, their discriminating thoughts may have clarity but lack stability. Many people may have clarity in their discriminating thoughts, but the stable, abiding aspect, the samatha, is very rare. Before the winds of discursive thought begin to stir, you should firmly tie the rope of mindfulness. Because once the winds of discursive thought start to blow, your entire state of mind will have already changed. So when you enter meditative absorption, use the rope of vigilant awareness and mindfulness to keep it tightly bound at all times, not allowing the mind to scatter outward. This is the meaning. All these teachings are saying that we should cultivate meditative concentration. As mentioned above, we still need to practice meditative concentration. So whether or not we can benefit sentient beings in the future, and whether or not we ourselves can practice in the future, first depends on relying on the guidance of the teacher and the scriptures, and then, crucially, on our own frequent practice and cultivation. For example, when we hear about the preciousness of human life, although it is said that human life is precious, what does that actually mean in detail? First contemplate and analyze it, then settle and meditate on it. In this way, perhaps some people, as they continue to practice, will suddenly realize, human life is truly hard to obtain, and begin to weep uncontrollably. Then when it comes to relying on the teacher, they realize that the teacher's qualities are truly inconceivable. Just thinking about it brings them to tears. Then thinking about the suffering of samsara, they truly feel the pain of samsara. Even now, so many sentient beings are suffering. In this way, little by little, one's original, especially incapable, wild and barren mind is slowly and gradually nourished by the nectar and begins to become gentle and tame. Your mind starts to soften, and at that time, the virtues of wholesome dharma in your own continuum have the opportunity to sprout, or even to blossom and bear fruit. There is this chance. If this does not happen, our mental continuum remains as dry as ever, just the same as before. Just like when you were at home before. Before you started studying Buddhism, whether it was deceiving others or giving rise to anger, as ordinary people, perhaps we had more negative tendencies with this kind of mindset. Even if later on you listen to countless teachings, attending more than a dozen classes a day, and even if you read through tens of thousands of books, your mental continuum still remains unchanged. So you see here, all these teachings are meant for us to actually practice. An unchanging mind is the supreme state of meditative concentration. Meditative stability requires the support of the resources of samatha. Therefore, one should reside in a quiet place, eliminate trivial matters, be content with little desire, and maintain pure discipline. It is crucial to rely on right mindfulness and clear awareness during actual practice. Later on, it explains how we should practice. If you want to practice better, you need to reduce trivial matters. Try to stay in relatively quiet places as much as possible. And don't be too greedy. Whether it's towards people or things, if your greed keeps growing, greed is the root of all afflictions. All anger and jealousy, all sorts of afflictions will start flooding in. This is especially frightening. So being content with little desire and maintaining pure discipline, if your pratimoksha vows or bodhisattva vows are very pure, then there is a chance that truly in your continuum you can give rise to some states of meditative concentration. When we are practicing, we must often use right awareness and right mindfulness to observe our body, speech and mind. Observing right awareness and mindfulness in our own continuum is extremely important. On this point, Rinpoche Thogme Sangpo himself said, "Without meditation one cannot see the nature of phenomena, so one should cultivate meditative equipoise of non-conceptuality. Therefore, without meditative concentration, one truly cannot see the nature of phenomena. For some with sharp faculties, it is also mentioned in the commentary on the Jewel Garland of the Middle Way, that if one does not first have meditative concentration, there are also a few who can directly point out and realize the true nature of reality, but such cases are extremely rare. Generally speaking, discipline, concentration, and wisdom. First comes discipline, then concentration, then wisdom. So when we talk about wisdom tomorrow, we must first have meditative concentration. And before meditative concentration, we must have discipline. Otherwise, it is not possible. Therefore, one must cultivate the meditative absorption of non-conceptuality. So all appearances are manifestations of our own mind. The nature of mind is originally free from elaborations. This is somewhat similar to the previous verses. All phenomena in the world are manifestations of our mind. And our mind is, by its nature, free from elaborations. This mind is not tainted by subject and object. If it is not distracted and abides single-pointedly in true meditative absorption, this is the only true method to realize the nature of mind and see one's true nature. It is also said relying on pure meditative concentration in this life The Venerable One also aspired to practice the three types of meditative absorption and practiced accordingly.
Bandara